Hey, Nico here from Zambezi Flora. We have had an interesting rainy season so far. This has been one of the driest seasons that I've been around for. As of the end of 2021, we only had about 120, 122 millimeters of rainfall. Usually we should have at least double that. By the end, by the end of December in 2020, we'd already recorded over 475 mils of rain here. Now, that was an extraordinary year, but this is the one thing about living in a semi-arid subtropical area, is not knowing when the rains are going to come or if you're going to have a good rainy season. But last night, thankfully, we had some decent rains. We had just over 24 mils. It was a nice light rainfall too, so that, it soaked in the ground quite well over the course of the whole night into early this morning. And things are much happier at the moment. Even the birds and everything else is much more active. The perennial plants, for the most part, have done all right. They've just kind of ebbed along. We've got these fantastic chlorophytum longifolium in bloom behind me at the moment. This is actually kind of delayed. These guys should have been looking like this, in December, but the lack of rain has kind of delayed everything. Things like the Gloriosa, the flame lilies, they've been very lackluster this year. Those that have flowered, and most of them are still just waiting for rain. So actually we might see things now start to flower with this new rain that we've had. But this video, I think we're just going to go and check out the nursery and kind of see what's going on, because for the most part, everything else is still a little dry and stunted. So let's go check out what the nursery has to offer. So this is the seedling area where I germinate all my seedlings. It's protected from the rain with this plastic here, mainly just because our rains can be very heavy at times, and we're actually just getting a bit of rain right now that you could probably hear on the roof of it. If we don't, I could potentially lose a lot of seedlings to things just getting washed out every year. So this is paramount to keeping things going. The beginning of the season has not been very good. First, I was late in terms of getting things sown, which I normally prefer to get done and into the trays by October and having them started by that point in time. Mainly just because giving them a bit of an early start helps develop slightly better seedlings by the time that the rains finish in April or May. However, this year, with the kind of lackadaisical rains that we have had, has meant that we have a lot longer heat. So even actually earlier this week, we had really hot days, and that's very unseasonal, to put it that way. So we were still getting into the high 20s, low to mid 30s in terms of day temperatures, and the seedlings will not like that whatsoever. So as a result, we've got some sparse germination here and there. Some things have obviously germinated much happier than others. So, it is what it is, and we will kind of hope that the remaining part of the season turns out. Otherwise, I will rejoice with whatever I do get germinated and have it growing on for then next year. So from the original propagation bench, where the seedlings are protected, in their first year, they come here to this second bench. Now, usually I will leave most of these seedlings in the trays over the course of the dry season. A lot of things don't like the disruption. Some things will definitely die off if they're disrupted, or they'll just dry out. So invariably, here, what I do is just have these guys to grow on in the second year. And these guys are open to the rains. If they get heavy rains, sometimes that can be devastating to the trays, but on the whole, this is not too bad. It's just got a light little shade netting up here and stuff like that. But as you can see, these have fairly warm last. We've even got the chlorophytum here, which is flowering in their second year. So it'll feed. This is Orphytum or something very closely related to it. I'm not 100% sure on that just at the moment. This might actually be Geophyllum. Again, the chlorophytum expert to really kind of distinguish that for me. However, it is such a fantastic little plant. I'm really looking forward to getting more of these guys growing out in the garden. Just because these little, almost like candlesticks of flowers just pop up, and this looks so kind of happy and joyful. But otherwise, most things will not be flowering. They're growing on. The gladioli, even actually some of these costus, macranthus and stuff like that. They're looking a little chlorotic at the moment, so we have to do some fertilizing, because that's about the one thing that I don't do much in the first year's fertilizing, but in the second year, especially when they've stayed in that tray for the first year, that's when they need to be fertilized. But this year has been a bit of a more difficult one for obvious reasons with the lack of rain. So, but otherwise I'm happy with how everything is doing on here. So now we are in the raised bed area. So this is the kind of third step where things will go. On this first line here, this is stuff that I plant with the intention of trying to harvest seed of and stuff like that. So the Cyphostemma here, this is Cyphostemma princei, which is the first flowering for this for me, which is nice because this was grown from seed about 3 to 4 years ago, and it's looking quite fabulous. The contrast of the inflorescence with the yellow tepals to the flowers with the darker green of the tops of the leaves looks fantastic. I love the size of these leaves with the leaflets then, you know, about 7 or so leaflets at the top, 5 leaflets at the bottom. Nice kind of mid-green on the top, but then you turn it over and you get that discolorous effect with the kind of gray tomentose undersides and stuff like that. I think this one would key out in the Flora Zambesiaca books as Cyphostemma Kirkvoordii, but that's now considered to be a synonym of Cyphostemma princei. So, you know, these things are what they are. And then just right next to it, we've got my favorite Cyphostemma. This is Cyphostemma van Meelii with these fantastic red glandular hairs. And this guy occasionally puts out tendrils. They shouldn't really, but he will on occasion put out tendrils and stuff like that. Growing these plants out from seed, sometimes you do get climbing versions of this. And this guy's just starting to flower. And here he's got more white tepals to the flowers. But, you know, when these guys are as opened as the princei type, they look quite stunning as well. And then, which kind of a nice little surprise for today, we've got a little Ariosema, or Ariospermum, sorry. Ariosema is in the Fabaceae family. This is Ariospermum, triphyllum. These are very diminutive little plants. They put out these little tiny yellow flowers, and then triphyllum with the 3 leaves. Just here, 1, 2, 3. These are hit and miss for me on a yearly basis. This was collected originally in a low, dry area in the Gwembe Valley in southern Zambia, and maybe it's just been really enjoying this kind of heat that we've had and a lack of rainfall. But this is the first year that it's actually done this well, so maybe that is an indication of what it needs. So we've got the last few flowers of the Costa spectabilis. And despite the lack of rain, although the raised beds have been getting watered about once a week in this droughty kind of weather, this is the last of it, and they've done really, really well. You know, these are one of these most fantastic plants for this kind of semi-dryland area that we have here, and very rewarding, even when there's not in flower, with these leaves that just lie flat on the ground. You know, it's almost like a four-leaf clover that's just oppressed to the ground. So fantastic plants. Then here we have 2 species of Afrosolon, formerly included in Laperoussia, but given its own genus not too long ago. So this is Afrosolon erythranthra. it has two kind of color forms here. So we got this kind of more bluey purple, and then we've got more of a pinky purple here as well. This one is very similar to another type that we also growing just right here, which is Afrosolon rivularis. But these ones, when looked in profile, the tepals kind of all line up in one plane. Whereas with rivularis, the flowers are bigger first and foremost. But when you're looking at them in profile, if I can just get that to be in profile, they don't line up in one plane. And as a result, these flowers look kind of more tubular than anything else. I don't know if I can really get that to show. I think that shows it fairly well. There are also, these plants, rivularis is also fewer flowered and generally has slightly larger flowers. So it's done really well. I'm quite happy with the flowering this year. It's set quite a bit of seed. This seed is recalcitrant, has to be sown and germinated in the same growing season, whereas the erythrophrantha, the seed is not. It's conventional. It will survive the dry season to germinate in the next rainy season. I don't quite understand the different patterns that these plants display in terms of why one should have to germinate in one year and the other the year after when they have roughly similar flowering times. So it's a bit of a mystery to me. And then I'm really happy this year with how the Anchomanes is doing. These are related to Amorphophallus, have a slightly more interesting but similar kind of umbrella-like leaf, but then it's these spines on the petiole that is just so fantastic on these. And these plants usually get bigger than what our Amorphophallus do here, so I'm quite happy with how that is growing this year. And then Kniphofia. These I collected several years back up in the northwest of the country. They have taken their time to really get growing and to look nice. I do believe this is Kniphofia dubia, although I'd have to check that out and just confirm it again. We don't have too many Kniphophias in Zambia, but what we do have is quite stunning. And it is nice because now this guy is starting to clump up. So I'm really looking forward to that, hoping that we will get some seeds so I can get this guy growing. But now we are starting to get some rain, so I'm a little bit hesitant to continue filming in case we get a heavy downpour. So here, this is another species of Chicanda that has now come up and flowered for us for the first time. This is Habenaria debierstiana. It has two other really closely related species, Nicholsonii and Odorata, but this one is easily discernible by the much shorter spur. I can't really know if we can make that out here, but it's about 1 centimeter long, so very easy to recognize that one. We've got a number of them coming up here, so I've already started trying to cross. So this guy here, I've now crossed to this one here, so I'm hoping to get seeds to share to Copperbelt University here in Zambia, as well as Millennium Seed Bank at Kew. But other than that, you know, it's fantastic to get more growing in the nursery here. So I'm going to leave it there for today. The rain has kind of come back, although it's fairly light, but I still don't want to get too wet as well when having the camera and out filming. I will be away for the next week or two as I go off to do a trip up to the Mafinga Hills up in northeastern Zambia. This is one of the higher elevation points in Zambia. It's an area that is fairly under-collected. So it's a great opportunity. We'll be adding to the knowledge of the botany of the area, and I'm really looking forward to that. So keep an eye out in the next several weeks. We'll have videos of that coming up, and I hope everybody had a great new year and that everybody is staying safe with the current ongoing pandemic, let's put it that way. And we will see you all in the next episode. Cheers.